Yes, that's awesome. Well, good evening, everyone, for those of you joining from India, and good morning for those of you joining from the US. I'm so glad you took this opportunity and time to join with me here on this training. I'm going to give one more minute for people because a bunch of people did register, and I'm seeing about less than half of them join here. So I'm going to give one more minute and wait until people join. All right. I hope you had a good day in India, and welcome to the long weekend for those of you joining from the US. And this topic nearly affects everything in your life. And it also affects every single person on earth at some point or the other. Now, before I head on onto my main topic, I want to make sure that you have maybe a pen and paper with you, that you're ready to learn, that your mindset is prepared, because I know you are hungry, you are wanting to learn, you want to grow. That's why you registered for this webinar. When Andrew Carnegie, he was the steel tycoon of the United States, when he died, they found a note in his desk. It was a note he wrote when he was just 20 years old. And on that piece of paper, it said, I'm going to spend the first half of my life earning money. And I'll spend the next half of my life giving it all away. It's a very interesting goal, isn't it? He got so inspired by that goal that in the first half of his life, he made $450 million. And in the last half of his life, he gave it all away. Now, just for perspective, $450 million in late 1800s is equivalent to many billion dollars in today's money, in 2020 money. He gave it all away. Now, you can't do that if you struggle with an inferiority complex. Making that much money will be very difficult, and giving it all away will be even more difficult if you struggle with an inferiority complex. Now, 8 out of 10 people, that is 80% of people, flat out believe that they're not good enough, that they are not intelligent enough or capable enough. This is according to 2019 November statistics. There was a survey that went on that concluded that 80% of people believe that they are not good enough, they are not competent enough, or they are not capable enough. I'm sure after the pandemic started, it definitely got worse, because we see not only a pandemic of the virus, but there is a pandemic of people feeling inferior, people feeling hopeless, people feeling like there is no hope for this life, and a lot of people committing suicide. Your inferiority complex affects every area of your life. It affects the careers you choose, the relationships you pursue, the way you carry yourself, the way you interact and communicate with people. It affects the amount of money you make, and it affects the way people treat you, and also the way you treat people. And most times it also affects your spiritual life. Well, in today's training, my main focus will be on these 3 important topics. How do you overcome inferiority complex? Another important thing I want to cover as I progress through this talk is, how do you set healthy boundaries in relationships? And how can you build self-worth based on a firm foundation? Now, before you listen to me, I guess you all want to know who I am. You want to know where you're getting your information from, right? Well, let me introduce myself. My name is Samarpana. And because people over here in the US can't pronounce my name completely, I adapted to the name Sam. I'm a leadership trainer and high performance coach. And I'm passionate about helping people find their potential and grow their potential. I also love motivating people to discover and lead with their inner strength. There's a beautiful Bible verse. It says, I can do all things through Christ who empowers me within. You know, God empowers us within. There is an inner strength that He placed in each and every one of us. And He wants us to operate from that strength. And I truly believe in this fact. And I would love to encourage people to tap into that inner strength that God has placed in them. I'm also a part of the world renowned John Maxwell team. The team offers advanced strategies to achieve high levels of impact, both for individuals and organizations. I'm sure a lot of people heard of John Maxwell. He is one of the leading experts in leadership and thought development. He's very well known in the business world. But the thing that I want to tell you today is I wasn't a very confident person all along. I wasn't like how you're seeing me over here on this webinar, or maybe you're watching this on YouTube. I wasn't a very confident person at all. In fact, a few years after I moved to the US, I started realizing that I was struggling with feelings of insecurity, feelings of inferiority. You know, when you move, I want you to remember this, because when you move into a place that is full of talent, it can trip you up. When we moved here to the Bay Area, which is the Silicon Valley, this is the place where all the tech giant companies are. There's lots of talent. We started going to a Bible study, me and my husband. We started going to a Bible study at Stanford because my husband believed Jesus from a Hindu background, and he was really burdened for student evangelism. And right after we came here, in the first month itself, we started going to this Bible study. And at Stanford, obviously, you heard of the university. It's one of the top universities in the world. And it's full of talent, full of very intellectual people. And I would sit in that small group study and look at all these people and the way they were communicating their thoughts. And I would feel so inferior. One, because I was never used to sitting in a group, just sharing my thoughts like that. I grew up in a very sheltered home. Everything was done for me and taken care of me. It was a very easy childhood. But then when I came here and I looked at all these people leading with confidence, it kind of made me so small. I would sit there wanting to share a thought, but it would just not come out of my mouth. I would feel so inferior. I would not share it, but then somebody else would share the exact same thought, and people would go like, "Wow, that's a great thought. Good job for sharing." And I would sit there and think, "Well, I thought about it. Why didn't I share it? What is wrong with me?" And it went on for a while until this one particular incident completely changed my life. I was at a wholesale store, and if some of you know the store brand names over here in the US, you may have heard of the store Costco. It's a wholesale store. And I went to the store, I finished my shopping. My sons were very little at that time. One was 10-year-old, excuse me, one was 10 months old, and the other was 3 years old. So both of them were with me. One of the babies was in the cart. And I went inside the store, I finished my shopping, and as I was coming out, I accidentally bumped my shopping cart with another person. So my cart hit her heel, the heel of her foot. Now, I want to tell you something. This happens pretty much every single day in stores. It happens all the time. People bump into each other. It annoys you for a second, but then people move on. You know, gracious people say, "Hey, that's okay," and they move on. And grumpy people kind of give you that nasty look, like, hey, what did you do? Watch out kind of look. But they also move on. But this particular lady who I bumped into was just so annoyed with it. I apologized to her. But I guess, you know what? I apologized a bit too much. I apologized more than I was supposed to. And when people are insecure, they can express it in different ways, depending on their temperament, depending on their values, depending on their conditioned habits. They're often sometimes shaped by past experiences. And in some kind of insecurities, it looks like meekness. Oh, you're being very meek, you're being very compliant, you're being very humble. And sometimes you take most of the blame. You kind of feel like you are the complete person in the wrong. You are the person who should completely take the blame, and you express it that way. So that's what I was doing. I was apologizing more than I was supposed to, and I think she picked up on that. It definitely fell in that category of making insecurity look like meekness or humility or compliance. And the lady took advantage of that opportunity. She started to manipulate me. She took my information, as in my driver's license, which you are not supposed to give to any stranger. And I didn't know about that. I was so naive. The moment she picked up on, oh, this person looks naive or this person looks insecure, she said, I need your driver's license. I need your information. She wrote down every single detail, my driver's license number, my address, and then she took my telephone number from me. And I had these two little kids, 10 months old and 3-year old. They completely had no clue of what was going on. The baby was very hungry. It was past lunchtime. He was crying, and I was on the verge of tears. I was almost crying. And then as I drove back, I was just literally bawling my eyes out, just crying, wondering, Lord, what in the world just happened? She was already threatening to sue me. And then when I got home, the call started. She would call me for days and weeks, threatening to sue me, asking me to pay her medical bills. She was saying, oh, when you hit my leg, it's so bruised, it's swollen. Now I need to go to the doctor, but I don't have insurance. You need to pay my medical bills. And if you know anything about the medical system here in the US, it's very, very expensive. If you don't have insurance, to pay everything out of pocket is absolutely insane. It just hits the sky. That's what I can say. So, and there are some people who don't have insurance, and this is what they do. They try to take advantage. If there are con artists like this lady was, and she started calling me saying, you need to pay my medical bills, I don't have insurance. And then she started saying, I'm going to sue you. The calls kept coming. And I'll tell you what, when that incident happened, it completely removed all trust in me. I never wanted to get in my car again. I never wanted to go to the grocery store again. And I never wanted to trust people again. It caused me to just pull myself back into a ball. And after days or months after that particular incident, I kept thinking about this one thing. Why was I not assertive? After the initial few days of shock, I was thinking, why was I not assertive? Why did I not resist back? Why did I let her take advantage of me? I should have pushed back. Why didn't I do that? And as I kept thinking about that, all my insecurities started coming to the surface. I was realizing that there was this underlying insecurity, inferiority complex in me that made me look like I'm humble, or I'm being extra nice to people, or I'm being meek. And as much as I hated going through that experience, and as much as it was so scary, it did in me something that I cannot buy it with money. I cannot get it in any other way. I think that's the reason why God allows us to go through experiences, because it does something in us that nothing else will do. You know, crisis always raises questions about who we are, what God has called us to do. You don't ask, who am I? What am I supposed to do in this world? What's my purpose when you're having a party, when everything around you is going really well, when everything around you is just peaceful and calm and excellent and you're enjoying life. Those kind of deep questions don't come to the surface. Crisis brings those questions to the top. Who am I? What am I called to do in this world? And that was the moment for me to really start taking a decision that I will not live in this belief of I'm not good enough. I'm not going to live in this belief of I'm not worthy enough. I'm not going to live in this belief of I'm inferior to these other people that are around me. This is a belief that is not working for me, and I am not going to live this way. Now, I'll tell you the information that I'm going to share in this. You will learn it in this 1 hour of presentation, maybe, but to put it into practice might take weeks or months or even years. Transformation is a process. It doesn't happen at the snap of a finger. You have to allow that process. You have to engage in the process. You have to trust the process, trust God in the process, even though it is difficult. And that's what I did. It took me months, it took me years to peel off those layers, to just bring to surface those questions of why am I feeling this way? What is it that is in me that is making me feel inferior to so and so? Or why am I feeling inferior in such and such situation? So I had to go through that process, and I'm hoping that you will take this information, and as you go through life, that you will think why you are behaving the way you are behaving. Because let me tell you, your belief shapes your behavior. What you're believing dictates your behavior. Many people walk through life not knowing how important it is for them to have confidence, to do what God has called them to do. They have a desire to do what God has called them to do, but they don't know how important equally confidence is. Because if you don't have confidence, and in other words, in Christian terms, it's a parallel and synonymous with faith. If you don't have that clear assurance that this is what God has called me to do, this is what I am meant for, no matter what people think or say, this is what He has called me to do. If you don't have that confidence, you cannot do anything. If you don't know that you have a call of God on your life and you're in the state of confusion, I really suggest that you take a moment and take a stock of your life, because God has a purpose and a call for every single individual. It might be in different fields, in different sectors, in different careers, but there is a call on your life to do something bigger than yourself. But if you believe that you're really made for more, that God is calling you to do something bigger than yourself, something in your own strength is absolutely not possible to accomplish, you need to overcome insecurities if you are struggling with an insecurity or a fear. Now, what is, excuse me, let's go back. What is an insecurity? Or what is an inferiority complex? Well, insecurity or inferiority has a root in fear. It stems from fear. Insecurity is a form of fear. Now, I am not talking about circumstantial fears. You know, sometimes when you suddenly see a lion, you obviously, everybody feels scared, right? Everybody is afraid. If you think that you're in the second floor of a building and it starts shaking, obviously you're afraid. I'm not talking about those kind of fears, not circumstantial fears. I'm talking about the kind of fear that is almost like a constant, that is almost like a state of being. It keeps reoccurring in your life. For example, let me tell you something that happened in my life. I was at a basketball game. I took my sons to a basketball game, and I was sitting with another mom. And she looked at me and said, "My 40th birthday is coming, and I'm really not very excited for it." I said, "Well, obviously, because no woman likes to age. Aging is something that is considered not very fun. So I thought, obviously, you know, nobody likes to age, and that's something that she's going through." But she said, "No, it's not like that. I'm actually very scared because my mom became a widow at 40. And I don't know, I have this fear that I might become a widow at 40." I looked at her like, whoa, do even people think like that? Just because something happened to your mom or dad, or something happened to somebody else in your life at that particular point or that particular age, some people have this underlying fear that, oh, what if that same exact story repeats in my own life? Or sometimes fear, insecurity can pop up in this way. Maybe a person has a sister whose husband was very unfaithful to her. Maybe the husband was cheating on her. Well, then this particular person will have this fear of, oh, I have to keep an eye and watch every move of my husband. I have to see what's going on, you know, when he goes to his work, or when he is goes on business trips or whatever. There is this constant insecurity and fear, wanting to control every move. Sometimes men might have this, oh, my dad lost his job and his financial situation crumbled. He had many financial problems. He got into debt. I don't want that story to repeat in my life. So I'm going to tolerate whatever happens in my workplace. Even though I'm treated poorly, I will work like a horse because I don't want to get into financial problems. I don't want to become a jobless person. You see how insecurities surface in your life? So it's important to know what insecurity is and how it is showing up in your life, in order for you to take a hold of it. And then there is another kind of insecure feeling. And that insecure feeling is a lack of confidence, or it's a feeling of a powerful fear of rejection. It's a chronic sense of inferiority complex because you think you are somehow defective or you are less of, and you fear that you will not be accepted or loved or received into this certain group. And most young people have this in regards to their appearance. When I was really young, I think maybe fourth or fifth grade, I used to have a bunch of really cute looking Muslim friends. All these girls were really beautiful girls. And I would just, as I hung out with them, they were very fair skinned. And I would always think that I was somehow not as good looking as they were. And I had this idea that my skin needs to be fairer. Okay. So one day a doctor came to our home. That lady was kind of close to our family. And in that age level, I think I was 10 or something, I thought that doctors, doesn't matter if it's a dermatologist or whatever profession, they all know how to make skin look better. Okay. So I asked this doctor a question. I said, what can I do to become light skinned? What can I do to become fair? She looked at me and she said, get some whitewash and just whitewash your face. I was so shocked. I was only 10 years old, but the way she answered was so sarcastic. It did hurt me, but it made me think. She said, what is wrong with you? Are you kidding me? Do you want lighter skin? You do have lighter skin. Besides, why does that even matter? And that sarcastic remark, it kind of, made me thinking, this is a superficial thing that I'm desiring. But most young people have that, young or even people into middle age, somehow they try all these different things to make their appearance look better. Now, I'm not saying wanting to be neat and put together is a bad thing. That's not my point at all. But wanting to somehow gain something that's not in your genetics, that will not only cause you to become inferior, but it will hit your confidence like nothing else. And sometimes men may have it in regards to how much, what kind of degrees they have or how much they earn. When they get around people who earn more, they might have these feelings, and definitely women have it for their appearance. Depending on their gender, there are different kinds of things. But I have to tell you, if you don't have your confidence based on firm things, these are shaky things. Appearance can be good one day, another day it can be down in the dredges. Earnings, people may earn really great money one year, the next year they might lose their job, and they might be close to becoming homeless. That has happened a lot here in Silicon Valley. There were people who were earning good money, but then the cost of living is so high that they end up living in their car. Everything is just in their car, and they park it on the side of their street, and that's where they live. They go shower in a public park, and that's where they live. So these are shaky things to base your confidence upon. But I want to go back to this insecurity of feeling rejected or not accepted by a group of people because you look a certain way, or you um, don't belong because you are less of. That kind of pain is really hard to take. And let's be honest, we all have this feeling of being accepted. But I want to tell you why it is important to separate yourself from that fear of rejection. Because if you are really, like I said, called to do something bigger than yourself, you need to come out of it. Now, let's see. You're seeing here on this slide, I have what is insecurity, why does it develop, and what can you do about it? Okay, so we saw what, we'll see why does it develop before we go to how can we deal with it. Okay, so what, why, and how. Why does it develop? Now, there was a doctor called Dr. Maxwell Maltz. He was a very famous plastic surgeon. He wrote a best-selling book called New Faces, New Futures. And in that book, he talks about how plastic surgery has opened this amazing door for a new way of life. Because people looked better on the outside, they started feeling better about themselves on the inside. But you know what happened? Over the years, Dr. Maltz noticed that not everybody felt better about themselves. Not everybody felt great about their appearance. In fact, he began to see patient after patient who even felt after the facial plastic surgery, they didn't feel better about themselves. And even with the beautiful altered faces, they still felt ugly. And some would look in the mirror after getting their new face and get angry with Dr. Malls. They'd say, I look the same I did as before. You didn't change anything for me. And although their friends and family members could hardly recognize them, they still felt nothing changed, that they still remained ugly. Dr. Malls would even show them the before and after pictures, and they'd still say, my nose is still too big, my ears are sticking out, my chin is not in the right shape. You didn't help me at all. And it was those cases that actually drove him to shift his focus from helping people change on the outside to helping people change on the inside. Now, this is not a Christian believer, he is a psychologist, but he concluded that every person has a face on the inside as well as on the outside. And if the face on the inside is scarred or disfigured, or if it is damaged and distorted, it doesn't matter how beautiful the face on the outside is. They will still struggle to accept themselves. It does not matter how beautiful their face is on the outside. they will still struggle to accept themselves. Now, let me ask you a question. Have you ever wondered why Michael Jackson and the actress Sridevi both went through multiple surgeries to improve their appearance? They were already good looking to start with. They already had successful careers with the kind of talent they had, apart from their physical appearance. Sridevi was a great actress. Michael Jackson was a great singer, but they went through these multiple surgeries. And it seemed like they both weren't happy with how they looked, in spite of their successful careers. And I'll tell you what, if they were alive today, we can safely assume that they would prefer more cosmetic surgeries to make them feel better. Absolutely. Up until before Sridevi died, I think 2 or 3 years before, she still was going through some kind of alterations in her face to make her look better or younger. There is this feeling in these people that they're somehow not good enough, that they somehow have to get a little more better to get that acceptance from people, that they have to keep up. Why do people develop this distorted image or the image of inferiority in them? Let's go to the next slide. Many times we end up with a distorted belief because we choose to believe the damaging words of people in our lives. Sometimes it happens way in our childhood. Maybe it's from friends who say things that put us down, or teachers, or close family members, or maybe it's relatives, or maybe when you've grown up, it's coworkers who say things that really hit your um, confidence or your inner personality. So you just believe into it, and you have this distorted belief. Sometimes distorted belief can be a result of your own interpretation, of circumstances, from your own comparisons, or the circumstances or experiences we go through, or the comparisons we make of ourselves with others. Now, if you believe that you are dumb, that you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, either in your studies or in your career, I don't know which area of life you're at right now, whether you're a student and you think that you're not smart enough, or you're in your career now and you think you're not competent enough. If you believe those things, you will behave correspondingly with what you believe, and the results you produce will match your beliefs. You see, one day a person went to China and he was just touring a city, and he stumbled upon this tattoo parlor. And he was looking through the window, and out of all the different designs and options for tattoos, he found this particular saying that said, "Born to lose." And he got a little bit intrigued. He went inside and asked the tattoo parlor owner who does the tattooing for people. He said, "Do people get this really? Do they get tattooed on their bodies saying born to lose? I mean, who would say, I'm born to lose, I'm a loser in life, and they want to get it tattooed on their body?" The man said, before they're tattooed on their body, they're tattooed in their mind. It's not about what they get on their body. They already believe into that in their mind, that they are born to lose, that they are not good enough. They're not in this world to do great things, that they're going to live an average or below average life. They already have that in their mind. When people have that, that is the kind of results they produce. And I want to tell you a story about a person called Les Brown. But before I do, I want to show 5 symptoms of how this inferiority or insecurity shows up in your life. Now we saw what is insecurity, why does people, why does it surface in people, or how is it formed, right? And now we are going to where does it show up? What are the symptoms of insecurity? Excuse me. Now, when people go through these insecurity, they show certain symptoms. And I want to talk about Les Brown. He actually is a very well-known motivational speaker, and I had the privilege of meeting him this January, right before the pandemic struck. I was able to go to this conference, and he was there, and he gave an amazing talk that made me actually refocus my life. But when he was a child, he was labeled an educable mental retard. He was not even considered a normal child. Well, this is a story. He and his brother, his name is Leslie and his brother's name is Wesley, both of them, when they were born and they were 7 days old, his mom brought these babies and left them on the doorstep of a person called Mrs. Brown. And she knocked on the door. And by the time Mrs. Brown even opened the door, the lady ran away. Just imagine leaving her newborn babies, two kids, twins, on the doorstep of somebody and just walking away. That's what Les Brown's biological mother did. When Mrs. Brown opened, this person who adopted them opened the door, there were these two boys, twins. She took them in, adopted them, named them Leslie and Wesley. And they both started going to school, but Wesley was a bright kid. And Leslie, they labeled him dumb kid. You know, sometimes people give us labels. You know, most times it is people who are grown up, they should know better, but they put labels on these kids. Hey, you're the dumb one, or you're the incapable one, or you are the less of one, whatever labels they are. So Les Brown got a label saying he was the dumb twin. And one day when he was sitting in class, his regular teacher did not come, his substitute came. So Les Brown was sitting in class, and the substitute said, Les, get up, come to the board, and solve this problem. Les Brown was, sir, you don't know me. You're not my teacher. I can't solve that problem. Everybody in the class laughed and they said, yes, sir, he is DT. He's not Wesley, the smart one. He's DT. The teacher said, what does DT mean? They all said, he's the dumb twin. He can't do that. And Les Brown accepted it. And he said, yes, sir, I'm the dumb one. I can do it. The teacher got up from his desk, walked over to Les Brown, and he said, don't you let anybody's opinions become your reality. Do not let somebody else's opinions become your reality. And the way that he spoke to him gave Les Brown a hope for his future. It sparked in him something that made him want to go after life, that made him believe that, hey, another alternative is possible. I don't have to live in this belief that I'm holding, that I'm dumb, that I'm stupid, that I'm not capable. Up until then, his opinion, the others that have that kind of opinion about him was holding him bound. But when that teacher spoke those words, don't let others' opinions become a reality in your life. When he heard that, something in him changed. And from that day onwards, if you really hear him speak, you'll actually be amazed that was he labeled educable mental retard when he was a kid, even in high school, even when he was in 10th, 11th grade. It's unbelievable. And he went on to become a member of Congress here in the United States. What I want to tell you is you don't have to let other people's opinions of you become your reality. What is your reality that you have to peel those layers and really take a hard look at yourself? And here are the symptoms that show up when a person is struggling with inferiority complex. The number one symptom is people struggle to accept compliments. Although you like it when people compliment you, you find it very uncomfortable and you struggle to accept compliments. This is a very easy to spot symptom of low self-esteem or inferiority complex. You have a hard time when people say, hey, that's a nice dress, or hey, that's a nice shirt, or you look great. You would either give an excuse saying, oh, this is such an old one, or you'll say, no, I don't look good. And then you want people to say, no, 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 you do look good. That's a good shirt, or this is really great. So you find it hard to accept compliments, and you also kind of give excuses when you receive compliments. You know, a research study that was published in a journal, a psychology journal, found that people with low self-esteem have the most difficulty accepting compliments. People with inferiority complex somehow feel that they're flawed or defective, that they don't measure up, or they believe that they're not good enough. So they have this trouble understanding how others can say such kind things about them. And there is this thing called cognitive dissonance, which is what they think about themselves and what other people are saying, they don't line up. So there is this gap in their minds, what people are saying and what they think. So there is a dissonance and there's an inconsistency in what they hear and how they feel. So it is very hard for them to accept compliments. They simply don't smile and say, thank you, I like it too. Or, yeah, I like the way I look today. Or just receiving it with genuine gratitude. That's very hard for them to do. Insecure people also practice something called a double put down. So, what a double put down is, they not only say unkind things about themselves, they also say unkind things about other people, like, can you believe how fat she is? Or can you believe what he wore? Or can you believe how he spoke? That's so horrible. You know, sometimes they not only have rude things to say about themselves, they also say it about other people. Versus confident people, they're always people who encourage. Remember this, confident people encourage. You want to build your confidence, be an encourager. You encourage yourself, also encourage others. Another symptom is people struggle with boundaries. Now, I know some of you are really wanting to listen about this, and I'm going to spend a little bit more time on this because this is one of my subtopics. People with inferiority complex have a really hard time saying no or being firm on what they believe. They feel obligated to say yes to absolutely everything they're approached with. They cannot verbally confront someone. They feel really bad inside and they feel very angry inside, or they feel miserable, but to verbally confront someone, it's very uncomfortable for them. They feel afraid that if they say no, they'll be rejected. Again, it goes back to the fear of rejection. And you feel bad to state the facts because you fear that if you state the facts, that you might be put out of the group, or that you might be rejected by maybe that not only that individual, or maybe you're a part of the team and you want to be included, whether it's a team at your workplace or it's a group of friends. You don't have confidence in your own truth, to stand in your own truth. So these are all symptoms of inferiority complex. And people struggle to set boundaries, not only in family relationships, work scenarios, between friends and coworkers because of this. But I'm going to give you 5 tips where you can actually stand in your truth and confidently say no. But this takes a bit of a process. I'm hoping you're ready with your pen and paper, but I also have a PDF that I put together. If you want maybe the slides at the end of this webinar, or if you want the content of what I'm going to share with you right now about setting boundaries, I have a PDF and I will drop it in the chat box or even on YouTube channel description if you want to download them. But if you strongly believe that you deserve respect, that you deserve to be treated right, that then you will put boundaries. It's just about what you believe. Are you believing that you deserve respect? If you don't believe that, you won't even know what to do when you're treated bad, when people are walking all over you, when people are saying whatever they want. If you don't believe that, hey, this is not right, you're not supposed to treat me this way, you're not supposed to cross your boundary here. And that's why it's important to have certain convictions, certain belief systems, strong foundations, that when you have them and people cross, you're immediately in tune to it, you're immediately aware, and then you can communicate that. And here's another thing: once people know that they can cross boundaries with you, once people know that, it'll likely be crossed again. They will do it again and again and again. That's why it's important when it happens the first time, you show them their place and say, hey, I don't feel this is right for you to treat me this way or say these things or do this to me. This is your place. And I want to go back to my story about that lady. I didn't know how to set boundary with her. When she started threatening to sue us and, take all these kind of bizarre steps, which she would have lost if she went to court. We were talking to a legal team, and the person said, you should have said you already got what you're supposed to. You got a sorry from me, you got an apology, and that's all you're going to get. You're not going to get anything else. You're not going to get money. This is something that happens every day. That was what I was supposed to do. When she was asking me for my driver's license, for my information, I would be like, good luck, lady. I'm not giving it to you. Go try that on somebody else. I'm not going to be sitting here and complying for everything that you ask. That is where I was supposed to draw the line. But because I did not know that, because I believed that I was somehow inferior to all these amazing people who live in Silicon Valley, I was thinking that I should be humble and meek and comply. And even though I kind of had an inkling, we have this sixth sense, this intuition, that when I was giving my driver's license, I kind of felt like, I think I'm not supposed to do that, but I'm not sure. But because I'm assuming all the blame, I'll go ahead and do it. So when you don't know how to set boundaries, when you don't know how to stand up for your own truth, and you don't know how to do it, people cross that boundary. And when they know that they can do it with you once, they will do it again and again unless you change the dynamic. And here are the 5 things that you can do intentionally that will help you set boundaries in relationships. The first thing, this might seem like a little off, but let me tell you, this will work. This will work with people who you constantly bump into with some kind of a rub in your relationship, or it will work if you get into a new job or a relationship, whatever. This will work. Okay. The first thing is plan your time. Planning your day will help you guard your time. Most times, boundaries are crossed and they're crossed into your time. Your time is taken advantage of. So when you're asked to do something, or when you're asked for your time, you know where your priorities are. And you will have the confidence to say no. Firm no, but also graciously no. because you already have planned your day, you have set the things that are priority to you, and you are in a practice of setting your boundaries. So these are something that will actually build your confidence every single day. Plan your time. Sometimes people don't honor your time, they don't honor your schedule, they want to just ram into your schedule, do whatever they want at their own timeline. When you are in a practice of saying, hey, you know what, actually that time doesn't work for me, I have something else going on during that time. When you have a habit of planning your time and telling people this is not going to work, when bigger things happen, because you already have a habit of doing it, you will do it firmly but also graciously. The next thing is lead yourself, become a leader. Now, John Maxwell, when he was in a conference, when he was going through this question and answer session, a young man came up to him and he said, John, I really love your leadership principles and all this content that you're sharing is really great, but I'm not a leader. I don't have a team to lead. How will I practice your leadership principles? John said, that's a great question. You should start by leading yourself. Before you become a leader and lead a team or organization, you need to learn to lead yourself. What is leading? When you give yourself a maybe something to do, like how you would give a team member something to do. If you tell yourself, hey, I'm going to do this project today, follow through it, do it. I'm going to read something today, do it. If you are saying things to yourself but not doing it, then you're not leading yourself. You're not prepared to lead an organization. Hello? It's news, but it may sound like news, but it's not really new news at all. If you learn to lead yourself, then you're preparing yourself to lead a team or an organization. So create routines and habits that will help you grow. A great place to start is the hour of power. 20 minutes of prayer, 20 minutes of reading, 20 minutes of exercising. 1 hour, you may have heard this hour of power many times, but trust me, if you're consistent with it, you're preparing yourself to be a leader. You're leading yourself and you're preparing yourself to be a leader. So 20 minutes of prayer, 20 minutes of reading, and 20 minutes of exercise. I hope you guys are taking notes, but if you don't, I have a PDF you can download. The third thing I want you to do to learn to set boundaries is surround yourself with great people. Hang out with people who are doing great things. Someone said your network is equal to your net worth. Your network is equal to your net worth. Who you hang out with will determine what you become later. Your prayer life will be an average of the 5 people you hang out with. Your intellectual caliber will be an average of the 5 people you hang out with. And even if you feel initially uncomfortable around these high achievers, you will be stretched. Being around such people will teach you how to stand up for yourself. So learn to surround yourself with people who are doing bigger things than you. The next thing is work on yourself. Require yourself to be a continuous learner. Knowledge is power, but when it is implemented, it can work as a dynamite. Be a student of yourself. Learn what triggers your insecurities. Learn what areas of your life make you feel inferior. Now, not everybody feels inferior in every area of their life. In some areas, they might feel confident, but there are some areas that they might feel inferior. So just be aware of yourself, be a learner of yourself, and see which areas are making you inferior, which circumstances, around which people do you feel inferior, and why are you feeling that way. When you are aware of yourself, you will also learn to develop confidence in those areas and also learn to set boundaries when you are in those kind of situations. The fifth thing I want to share is learn to communicate. Now, this might be the last thing that I'm sharing in this particular symptom, but let me tell you, this by no means is the least. Learning to communicate your thoughts and feelings in a clear way will help you have healthier relationships. The truth is, the truth is setting, excuse me, the truth is, the truth is setting boundaries in communication will only happen when you communicate your beliefs, when you communicate your convictions, and you are standing by them. When you stand by your beliefs and convictions, when there is a push against them, then you will know how to communicate. Now, if you don't have beliefs or convictions, you don't know how to communicate them. So do both, knowing what your beliefs are and communicating them. The next thing, the next symptom is struggling to believe that someone could actually love you. Now, I'm going to swing by these because I think we are getting a little bit beyond our time. So I'm going to skip these, but let me tell you, some people find it so hard to believe that they are actually lovable. And that's why when people say, God loves you, they have such a hard time believing because they think, oh, me, God loves me, I'm such a horrible person, God loves me. Or they feel it hard to accept that somebody else might love them. So that's another thing that sprouts from having low self-worth. Another thing that people struggle with is depression and discouragement. The other day I was reading my Bible and there is this character called Zerubbabel, and he has this pet peeve, or he has this drawback, that is he constantly needs encouragement. Zerubbabel did some amazing things, but the drawback is he always needed encouragement. And sometimes we are like that when we are going through inferiority. We always need somebody to encourage us and push us. And that discouragement can also lead to depression sometimes. And I know depression is a gray area. It could be due to many different reasons. It could be due to chemical imbalance. It could be because people go through different psychological symptoms. But usually when people allow discouragement to linger for a longer time, they could get depressed. And inferiority complex and discouragement kind of are go hand in hand. They kind of blend together. And the things that discourage us is our own voices inside our head, our own comparisons, Satan's voices, the voices of negative people in our life. We really have to work hard to push those negative voices aside, whether it's your own voice or Satan's voice or the voice of people, negative people in your life. It has to be an intentional, really pushing through, like how swimmers, when they swim, they go like that and push the water to the sides. You really have to learn how to do that every single day if you have to overcome this feeling of inferiority. Because if you allow those things to affect you, you will be discouraged more and more. The other thing is people struggle with self-doubt. And I'm just going to make just a mention of this because I have a lot more to share and we have another 20 minutes left, and I want to give time um, for question and answers. If anybody has any questions regarding this topic or certain other things that I'm going to share later. But people struggle with self-doubt, like if they are about to do something big, about to take action on a dream, they're gripped with fear. And some of that fear could be natural, but if it is holding you back from taking a courageous step of action, it's rooted in self-doubt, and that is a symptom of inferiority complex. When you bring that fear to the forefront and shine some light on it, you will know that those roots are in the programming you have in your mind, that you won't be able to do it, that you are inferior, that you cannot do it. But let me tell you, God is counting on you to do big things for him. He needs you to be full of confidence. And if you are full of insecurities, God cannot accomplish his purpose in your life. Just like faith activates the power of God in your life, fear activates Satan's power in your life. An inferiority complex is completely rooted in fear. Fear activates Satan's power, and faith activates God's power in your life. Satan wants you to live in fear and insecurity and struggle with all this and not do anything with your life, not accomplish anything for God. But if you overcome this, you will be able to do great things. And yes, it is called a struggle. I asked you on my Facebook post, why is it called a struggle? It is a struggle because it is a battle in your mind. It's a constant push between God, what God is calling you to do, what God has meant for you to do, and what you are believing into, what you are allowing to control you. Now, I want you to take a minute, take a pen and paper, and write down what does confidence looks like for you, your version of your confident self. How does it project for you? Now, if you are a person who spends most of your waking hours in a work scenario, you have a career going on, you're at a job situation, write down what your confident self looks like in that scenario. If you are a student, what does confident self look like in that scenario? If you are an entrepreneur, if you're doing something, what does your confident self look like in that scenario? Take a moment and write down. I'm going to pause and wait for you because we are kind of three-fourths of our way into this talk. And before I give you 7 practical things you can do to become confident, I want you to know what is that version of yourself? How does it look like for you to be a confident person? I know what it looks like for me to be a confident person, but what does it look like for you? Write down. All right. I hope you were able to jot down at least a couple of things of what your version of confidence for you looks like. How does it show up in your life? I want to go back a few slides because I kind of feel like I missed this. Um, if inferiority complex is not our choice, the opposite is superiority complex. So is that what we are aiming for? Let me tell you, superiority complex is not the goal. In fact, it's just as bad. It has the same roots. Sometimes people who really suffer with inferiority complex go on the other side of the spectrum and project it like superiority complex. It has the exact same roots. It's just showing up. It's just dressed up a little bit differently. It's dressed up in arrogance and pride and feeling like you are way better than everybody else. So you know that you're not better than anybody else, but you want to project this appearance that you're way better. So I just want to bring that contrast that, excuse me, if inferiority complex is not our goal, neither is superiority complex. These are both just as bad and completely to be avoided. The opposite of inferiority complex is confidence, and your version of confidence is what you wrote right now. All right. What does confidence really mean? Well, confidence, like you see over here, is not thinking that they will like me. It's knowing that I'll be fine even if they don't like me. It's walking into a room. It's not walking into a room, putting your nose up in the air and thinking that you're better than everybody else. It's walking into a room and not even thinking of comparing yourself to anyone in the first place. So confidence is not about, being better than anybody, but just knowing your value, knowing who you are. And I will tell you two foundational principles that have really helped me. After that incident that I told you, I was going through a lot of self reflection. And this is what that worked for me. These are the two foundational principles. The first foundational principle is believe in the resurrection. For me, my belief is founded on the truth that Jesus has come, he died for me, and he rose again. That gives me tremendous supernatural confidence. There is something that happens inside you when you believe the fact that Jesus, who is a God in heaven, who is the Son of the Father, came down. He died for my sin. He was the substitute for me, and he paid the penalty for me, and he rose again. He is living. I'm not serving a dead God, I'm serving a living God. That belief in resurrection gives me confidence. And I know you probably didn't hear this point in any training in for confidence, but this is from my experience. When I started thinking about it, even though I was born a Christian and I was a believer for so long, when I started thinking about it after I went through those circumstances, our belief dictates our behavior, doesn't it? When you believe that Jesus rose again and he's living today, he is right there next to you to help you. It produces in you confidence like nothing else. And I love that song. Because he lives, I can face tomorrow. Because he lives, all fear is gone. Every fear is taken care of. Because I know he holds the future. Life is worth the living because he lives. And I want to ask you this. For me, this is the foundation of my belief. What about for you? What do you believe about yourself? Where does your belief come from? Now, I don't believe that I came or descended from monkeys. That's not my belief. I don't believe that I evolved from this monkey that was just hanging out in tree branches. I believe that I was created by God, that he put me on this earth for a purpose, that I have a job to do, that I'm sent on this earth with an assignment to do something that is beyond me, that I can only do it with his help. That is my firm belief, and that gives me the confidence and courage. Where is your beliefs founded on? Where does your confidence come from? If you're basing your confidence on riches, on your appearance, on your degrees or your job or how much you're earning, let's go back and look at Michael Jackson and Sridevi. Those were accomplished people. They had all the money in the world. They had the looks they wanted. They had the praise of people. They had seemed like they had everything, but actually they didn't. They were so empty on the inside. Where does your belief come from? What are your foundational principles? I'm challenging everybody here on this webinar and also watching on YouTube. Where does your foundational principles come from? On what are you basing your confidence on? Someone said, doubt your beliefs and believe your doubts. Doubt your beliefs. What are you believing on? Are those true foundations? Do you have doubts about Jesus? Do you want to know more? Leave a comment in the chat below, or if you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment down and I'll make sure I go through and I answer your questions. The second foundational principle was I was training myself to believe what the Bible's saying about me. You know, the most powerful words in any language is the words I am. Anything attached to I am becomes a powerful statement. And I was telling myself as I read the Bible, I am blessed, I am redeemed, I am chosen, I am forgiven, I am adopted as his child, I am seated in the heavenly realms with Jesus when he was raised up from the grave. I am sealed with the Holy Spirit. Today, I will walk in every good work that God has prepared for me. And as I kept saying those I am statements, it brought in me the confidence, the courage to know that I am here on this on this earth to do something for the Lord. And this is really important, especially if you're working on a goal. Sometimes when you're working on goals and people don't approve, some people in our life think that we need to take their permission, that you are supposed to do this or that only if they approve or give permission. But when you have this firm foundation that you are called to do something for the Lord because God has placed you for this purpose, it'll give you that confidence. Let me tell you, say your I am statements based on the word of God, and you will be healed from the disease to please people. There is this pandemic, this disease to please people. We walk every step wanting to please people in our life, and it's a good thing to want to please your parents, your spouse, your children. It's a good thing. But when it becomes a disease to always please, please, please people, wanting to make other people happy, you will absolutely be crippled and you won't be able to do anything. So base your foundation on what God is saying about you. And when you have a goal, when you have a dream, it will give you the courage to go after it. And now I want to share with you 7 practical things you can do today, starting today, to develop your confidence and get a really good balanced view of yourself so you can carry yourself with really healthy confidence, not arrogance, but healthy confidence. The first thing to do is, let me turn the slide, is practice intentional living. We all have good intentions. We all have great aspirations, good intentions. But can good intentions be a bad thing? Think about it. Can good intentions be a bad thing? They're good. Intentions are good, aren't they? But yes, good intentions can be a bad thing if they do not transform or if they do not turn into intentional living. There was a poet called Samuel Johnson. He said, hell is paved with good intentions. People are heading to hell with good intentions. Intentions like, I want to quit smoking. I want to stop this bad habit. I want to stop sinning. I want to, all this want to kind of good intentions, but never turning those intentions into actions. Now, nobody wakes up in the morning saying, I want to waste all my time on the internet scrolling today, watching what other people are doing. Nobody wakes up with that goal. At least I hope nobody wakes up with that goal. But at the end of the day, that's all we've did. That's all we've done. We've wasted a bunch of time on the internet and we haven't accomplished the want tos in our life, the things that we said we want to do. Live intentionally. When you don't live intentionally, it hits your confidence. When good intentions are not backed with intentional action, they are of no use. And if you're working on building your confidence, here's the key. Turn your intentions into action, develop your muscle of action. See, when you get an idea, when you don't put it into immediate practice, the motivation you have when you get that idea will not be there 2 days after, or 1 week after, or a month after. When you get the idea, when you get that intention, put it into immediate action. Now, let's have the scenario of two people waking up in the morning. One person wakes up, just randomly rolls out of bed, just goes and eats some junky breakfast. He has some intentions for the day of being productive, but just goes throughout the day wasting his time. And at the end of the day, he realizes that he hasn't taken any action or got anything accomplished. While the other person wakes up and he has a proper morning routine, spends some good time reading and meditating on God's word, journals, intentionally writes down a list of things to do, spends time planning and charting out for the day, and goes on and accomplishes those things. Tell me, who will be more confident? Is the person who is just being unintentional and just rolling out of bed and doing this random things, or person who is organized and sets their intentions? Who is more confident? I think you can answer this question for yourself. The next practice is practice accepting yourself. Now let's imagine a scenario, okay? There's this person called John. He looks in the mirror and he thinks to himself, I have such a fat nose. My hair is beginning to gray. And then his thoughts jump to his friend Nathan. He thinks, well, Nathan has a sharp nose. He doesn't have any gray hair. And he is also so tall and handsome. Sometimes when we look in the mirror, what are the conversations we are having with ourselves? It is hard to keep ourselves from comparing, but the hard truth is, no matter how we try, how much we try, keeping up with someone else's genetics, keeping up with someone else's looks is a losing game. Comparing our height or physique or hair or complexion or any other physical traits, it'll make us feel inferior. So if you are into comparing your physical appearance with anybody, please stop doing that. It's a losing game. Everybody has their own uniqueness. Everybody has their own flaws. The moment you learn to accept yourself for the way you are, that is the moment you will learn to improve yourself. Acceptance is the first step for improvement. Until and unless you keep digging yourself into that pit, until and unless you actually don't accept yourself, you will keep digging yourself into that deeper pit of comparison and inferiority complex. So remember, when you look in the mirror, what is the conversation you're having with yourself? Are you living in some kind of delusion, not accepting yourself? So practice accepting. The next principle here is practice keeping your promises to yourself. What promises are you making yourself? Are you telling yourself, tomorrow I'm going to wake up at 6 o'clock? From tomorrow onwards, I am not sleeping in. I've been waking up at 10 o'clock every morning. I don't want to do that. Or have you told yourself, I'll stop wasting time and start reading a good book. I want to grow myself. And you pick up a good book and you read for 2 days, but then the book ends up, probably on the shelf or maybe under your bed or somewhere just collecting dust. You see, when you're not consistent with keeping your promises to yourself, each time you break a promise to yourself, your personal dignity takes a hit. Our mind can't tell the difference between us telling somebody and telling ourselves. Say if you've told somebody, hey, I'm going to go on a diet from Monday onwards, but then you don't take it seriously and your coworker sees you eating one big slice of junky pizza, and your coworker says, hey, I thought you were going on a diet. And the kind of feeling that you get when your coworker says, hey, I thought you were going on a diet, you feel very shy or embarrassed about it. It's the same feeling you get when your mind says, Hey, you haven't woke up early like you said you would. When your mind says that, your personal dignity takes a hit. And every time you break a promise to yourself, every time you say you're going to do something and you don't do it, you will become inferior. You will have that inferiority complex within you. Nobody sees it, but it just wells up within you. So practice keeping promises to yourself. Consistently do things that you told yourself you would do. Now, I would recommend you do it for 21 days, even if it is one small thing. Like, make one simple promise to yourself. I want to drink more water 21 days straight. It could be very simple. Or I want to have a good consistent quiet time in the morning. I want to meditate on God's word. Do it for 21 days. Or I want to memorize a scripture. Do it for 21 days. When you keep your promise to yourself and you consistently do it, you are building a reputation within yourself. You're learning how to build that reputation. So you will start respecting yourself for doing things that are difficult. It takes intention to keep doing the same thing every day and be disciplined with it. So you're building a reputation with yourself. The other thing is practice personal integrity. Now, I'm going to whiz by these really quick, but I want to give you an example. There was this person. What does integrity mean? Let's actually go back there and see, what does integrity mean? Integrity means being the same person when people are watching or not. Being the same person when people are watching or not. It's a really tall order, let me tell you. It's hard, but when you practice that, you will become a confident person like nothing else. There was this farmer who took his son for fishing one day. And here in the US, when people go fishing, there are certain kinds of fish that are not permitted in certain seasons. So even if you catch that fish and if it's not permitted in that season, you'll have to drop it back. People have fishing licenses, you probably know that, and they go out for fish, and maybe there's a certain kind of fish and you are allowed to only catch it from maybe September to November. And if you go in August, and maybe if it's even August 31st, you might still have to drop it. So this person and his son went for fishing, and they caught a big fish, a big bass, and that was the biggest fish they ever caught. And they looked at the clock. It was just 2 hours away from the time that that certain kind of fish was allowed, to take home. They looked around the lake. There was nobody. Nobody was watching them. There was nobody around. What would you do? The dad said, "We have to put it back, son." And the son said, "Dad, it's the biggest fish we ever caught and nobody is watching." But the dad said, "No, son, it has to go back in the water." "But it's only 2 hours." "No, son, it has to go back in the water. We are not permitted to fish." And that scenario happened. It remained in the son's mind. Sure enough, they went fishing after that many times, but they never caught that big of a fish ever in their lives again. The son grew up and became a very successful businessman in New York. He built this great business. And in one of his interviews, people asked, "What is the success of your business?" And he goes back to that experience that taught him integrity. That experience taught me to be the same person when people are watching and when people are not. He said, "I see that big fish many times in terms of opportunities that are not right, opportunities that are not for me to take. I see that fish many times in my business, but I stay stuck to my integrity. And that is why I became so successful." Don't act against what you believe. When you act against what you believe, your inner voice, your conscience, it will keep telling you that you are worthless. Satan will take advantage of that and it'll keep telling you that you're worthless. When you're not practicing integrity, your conscience will prick you and it will tell you that you're worthless. That will start developing into an inferiority complex that you cannot get rid of. So be authentic and true to yourself. Don't go against your personal belief. There's a word called congruency. It's so important to be in this congruent state. Sometimes people are very disturbed. They're not in a peaceful state because congruency is when you believe something and your actions and your thinking lines up really well. You believe something, you believe that telling lies is wrong. But then when certain pressured situation comes, you're suddenly telling lies. It creates in you a very disturbed state. You're not congruent. And because you're not integrous, it'll create in you an inferiority complex. You can't be courageous. There's a beautiful verse in the Bible that says, the righteous are as bold as lions. It's not that our righteousness is all of our own. Yes, God gave us his righteousness, but there is a process that we go through, a state of living in righteousness that God has called us to, an integrity that we are supposed to be living in, that will create in you this state of congruency and confidence. So practice living in an integrous life, practice integrity. And then another thing that I want to share is practice gratitude. Um, and practicing responsibility. I'm not going to go into detail of into this, but being in a grateful state definitely keeps your mood in a positive way and it creates in you confidence. Practice serving others. When you bring a smile to somebody's face, it in turn brings a smile and it gives you confidence within yourself. When you're constantly serving others, the focus is not on yourself. Sometimes inferior people are so self conscious. The focus is always on themselves. When they walk into the room, their focus is on themselves. Instead of walking into a room wanting to serve others, walking into a room wanting to be of help to others, walking into a relationship wanting to serve other people, or going into jobs that they want to pour into and be a game changer there. The focus is always on themselves. So people who are inferior have this big floodlight focused on themselves and they feel so uncomfortable. Take that floodlight and focus it onto people that you want to serve, people that you want to help, people that you want to impact. When you do that, when you focus on serving others, your inferiority complex dwindles away because you are serving and that creates in you confidence. So I hope these 7 practices will be something that you will note down and really work into your living, work into your actions every single day. And if serving is something that you're focused on, I want to talk to you about something that um, I created for people who want to serve in Christian ministry or people who want to be an influence in the marketplace. Maybe you want to develop your speaking skills or communication, because let me tell you, being able to communicate is one of the most important things that builds your confidence. Another thing I want to tell from personal experience is building your vocabulary. You know what happens when you build your vocabulary? Your thinking shifts because now you have given your brain words that will actually translate your emotions so you can express it to somebody else. Recently, my family, my husband and I, we bought a vocabulary course. And that has been really fun because since the pandemic began, we started just taking trips to, fun places like, just going to nearby creeks or rivers or, going on hikes. And as we drove, we wanted to use that time to build ourselves. So we took this vocabulary course, and knowing different words, knowing how to express yourself using different words will build your confidence. Knowing how to communicate, knowing how to speak, knowing how to stand up and put your thoughts or present your thoughts to a group of people will create in you a lot of confidence. And if it's something that you want to invest in, I have a resource that I built. I will leave a link in the description, both in YouTube and also in the chat over here. Some of my team members will probably help me with that and putting those links, but hang in there, the information will come. But I wanted to tell you one last thing. Are you getting any benefit from this webinar? I hope this webinar has added value to you, but let me give you a little scenario about an eagle, okay? Eagles are great examples for many things. So far, we've covered what is insecurity, why does it pop up, where does it pop up, the symptoms of it, what are the foundational principles you need to um, build your confidence on, and how you can develop confidence in the 7 practical steps that I shared. I'm using 2 screens, so just in case if you're seeing me turn towards the other side, I just want to make it clear that I'm having another screen here. So this is what we've been through, but I want to challenge you with this example of the eagle. Okay, eagles are amazing birds. Eagles live up to 70 years, but around 40 years, around when it hits the age 40, eagle has to make a very painful decision. Okay, around that time between 38 and 40, what eagles go through is a stage where its beak begins to bend and it's not as sharp. Its talons, those little sharp claws, become very dull. It cannot any longer hold on to prey. The feathers become very heavy, making it hard to fly for the eagle. So around that time, the eagle has to make a decision. It has to go away into mountains where no human eye can see. What it does is it'll smash its beak against a stone. So the beak falls off. It'll pluck its talons one by one, very painful, but it'll pluck all its claws and then it'll pick out all its feathers. It's a very painful process, but only when that eagle goes through that process and grows new beak, new talons, new feathers, it'll come back young. That's why the Bible says, young as eagles, renew your youth like eagles, right? It goes through a renewing process. And when it goes through that process, it'll come back with new energy to live for another 30 years. What I've told you until now of overcoming inferiority, developing good confidence is a process like that. You have to let go of all these complexes in you, of all these fears. You have to pluck all these disease to please other people. You have to pluck out all these distorted images that you built of yourself. When you get rid of all that, that is when a renewing process happens and you will come back like a new person. When you allow that process to happen in you, you'll come back and you will say, hey, allow me to reintroduce myself. I'm not the old person. You know, sometimes people go through painful circumstances and they come back as a new person. Sometimes it makes us wonder, whoa, what happened to them? It's so important to go through that process, but it's a choice. The eagle has a choice to just die at age 40 or just go into that seclusion and go through that painful process and come back with renewed youth. Do you want to go through that process? Do you want to just get rid of all these negative beliefs that you've been holding on to? Do you want to come back new, rejuvenated for another 30 years? Get rid of all these negative things that you've been holding on to. And I want to tell you, it doesn't happen in one day. You know, developing confidence does not happen by attending a webinar, reading a book, watching a video. You probably may have already watched multiple videos on YouTube, on developing confidence. But until you put these 7 things into practice, they're called practices: the practice of living intentionally, practice of practicing, practice of integrity. So all these are practices. Practice, that word has that meaning that it is a practical thing, that is something that you need to do every single day. It's not a theory, it's a practical thing. So developing confidence does not happen by listening to a sermon or a webinar or reading a book. It happens by implementing. So I challenge you to implement this and developing confidence. One way of it is when you're serving, and a way to serve is through speaking. And if you are interested in speaking, there's a course that I've built. I hope the links are already in. I don't see the chat right now. Let me stop sharing so I can see the chat. Actually, let's go through this one last thing before. Yeah. So here's a rundown of what the authentic speaking and communication course covers. If some of these topics seem interesting to you, that you're interested in overcoming your fear of public speaking, you want to know how to pick the right topic, you want to know how to build a presentation that has a real impact, if you want to know how to truly connect with people, not just communicate, but connect, if you want to know how to develop good voice habits and body language, and if you want to dress for success and you want to know how to do that, if you want to know what disciplines do speakers have, how come they grow to that kind of level. I've been trained by John Maxwell. I've been part of that team. And there are many other courses that I've taken. And I've distilled all my knowledge into building this course. If you are interested in this, I will make sure that you get this information. Leave in the chat below if you're interested in knowing this. And when you buy this course, you'll also receive 4 group coaching calls that I'll be coaching in groups, and also give you one-on-one guidance. So if this is something that you would like to get your hands on, make sure you click on that link. The course has 7 modules with 3 lessons. It's a very intensive and in-depth course, and 1 module is released each week. So if you're interested in it, go ahead and click the link below. I hope this webinar was helpful to you. Let me know in the comments below if you have learned anything new, if this was helpful, if you'd like to participate in more webinars like this. I'd love to hear from you. So thank you so much. Any questions? Let me see here in the chat. Any questions? Well, so glad to hear that, Christine. Christine says she is blessed. So glad to hear that. I'll give one more minute. Any questions about the course? Anybody? Well, thank you so much. I will let you go. I know some of you who are joining from India, it's already late. I will let you go. Thank you so much. Hopefully I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye. Sure, thank you. Thank you. Glad to know that. Thank you very much. All right. Good night, everybody. And for those of you joining from here, have a good day and wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.